this is Thomas Andrick, your voice for the PPC in Whitby. It is Wednesday, March the 9th, and it's been a little while since I made my first video concerning the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And in that video I gave some background information, a little history on the relationship of these two countries and why and how this conflict could have or came about, and what could be the causes of this conflict, the background for these conflicts. Today I want to expand on that because since then there have been developments, and I'd like just to reflect on these developments to show how the West has been reacting. So the first thing I'd like to touch base on is what happened on March 1st. March 1st, Security Council came together in the UN. A number of diplomats came together, sat down, were discussing this Russia-Ukraine conflict and the Russian situation. And then Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov appeared on the big screen in the chamber. And at that point, more than 100 diplomats decided to get up and leave. So they didn't even wait to listen to Foreign Minister Lavrov. They weren't interested in what he had to say. They completely disrespected Foreign Minister Lavrov, and through him and with their actions they completely disrespected Russia and the Russian side of things, Russian opinion, and the Russian government. I have to say that this is probably a greatly unfortunate turn of events. It shows that the West is uninterested in diplomacy, uninterested in listening to what Russia has to say, uninterested in perhaps diplomatic solutions. Everybody knows that this type of reaction and this type of thought process of not even considering what the other side has to say will lead to complete failure. And I have to say that that's exactly what's happening. For diplomats to leave, get up and leave without listening is a huge error, a huge faux pas. This cannot be done. And it will lead not to a solution but to greater conflict, which it has. And it shows the West has other ideas, and unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong, it's probably not ruling out military conflict. As over the days we have seen that they have not ruled it out. Huge error and mistake. I fear that they might drag the whole world into this conflict, which will obviously benefit nobody. War is never the solution. Diplomacy is. Listening to the other side is. With their action, these diplomats' actions, by disrespecting the foreign minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, the West has shown their true colors. And this is what they have been doing with Russia for decades and decades and decades. And this is exactly what the Russian mentality is, and how Russia has come about to say that the West doesn't respect them, because they really don't. The West seems to be arrogant and does not want to listen to the other side. Huge error, big mistake. And stemming from this, we've seen the actions of the West, because they have been going into and playing a game of collective guilt. What is collective guilt? Well, we've seen collective guilt used in the past during the Second World War by the internment of Japanese people of Japanese descent in Canada and German descent, not just in Canada but in other countries as well, all throughout Europe and North America. Just because somebody was of Japanese descent or German descent or a descent of another of the enemy, they were interned, held in camps. And we know that this is illegal since 1949 in the Geneva Convention. It is written in stone, basically, that this is illegal. Collective guilt cannot be used. You cannot just collectively punish a people for being of that people. But we see this being done already. We see this being used throughout the Western world towards Russians. For example, CCM pulling Alex Ovechkin's merchandise off the shelves and not selling them and not putting them on to be sold, that is a form of collective guilt. What does Alex Ovechkin have to do with what is going on in Ukraine and the Russian government? Absolutely nothing. But this is just one example. We see opera singers throughout Europe. The latest one was a Russian conductor for the London Symphony let go, told to leave. We also saw that the owner of Manchester United was forced to sell the team. Why? Because the owner is Russian. This is collective guilt. You cannot do this. Just because somebody has a Russian passport does not mean that they are guilty. But the West is doing it anyway. This is another huge mistake, terrible point for the West. And the other developments go as such. We see now the price of gas, everybody sees what has been going on with our economy. They've been putting sanctions on Russian oil. We're not purchasing Russian oil, and we are suffering for it. Yes, it is wartime. Yes, we will feel some of the effects of war, even here. But this has gone much too far. Not only are we in the West sanctioning Russian oil, not purchasing Russian oil, but as our great Prime Minister has said, that we will not increase production. And nobody's increasing production. Yet that's what should be done. Why? Because our economy is already weak as it is. Our economy is suffering. People are suffering. The inflation rate is sky high. And this will only contribute to our huge inflation rate. This will mean more and more people will have less and less money. We will not be able to drive anywhere. Everything that is shipped and put on the trucks and needs to be taken to the stores via truck or via train, via airplane, doesn't matter, because all types of fuel is increasing, will cost more. We will have less in our pocket, and that means more and more people will become poorer and poorer. Huge effect on our economy. Enormous effect on our economy. We'll be feeling this for quite a while. And not just for a couple weeks or months, but unfortunately, probably years. Will this be able to be turned around? I don't think so, and I have a feeling it's only going to get worse. Why do I say this? Reports are that Vladimir Putin and the Russian government have a huge stockpile of gold. That means that they have been planning for this war for quite a while. That means they have a plan. Just as he said, Putin said at the beginning when he declared a war on the Ukraine, he said they have prepared for all possibilities. And when he says that, he means it. Why do I say this? Because ex-KGB, they were trained for all of this. They were trained to go to war. And Putin is ex-KGB. They have stockpiles of gold. And the reports are showing and saying that eventually he's going to dump the US currency as the basis for their economy. What is this going to mean for us? Once they dump the US currency that they have into the pool of US currency already in the world, excess currency, and there's going to be a lot of excess currency because thankfully President Joe Biden has printed a huge amount of US dollars, flooded the market. There's going to be even more, making it even less valuable. They're devaluing the dollar, and anybody in any economy that bases their currency on the US dollar is going to be devalued even greater than it already is. Repercussions for Canada are huge. We don't have a gold stockpile. We've got nothing. This Prime Minister sold all that was left. We don't have anything to base our money on if we don't base it on the US currency. It is done for. So the gold standard that the Russians are going to want to base their economy on and their currency on is going to be valuable, while our currency and our economy becomes devalued, sending our economy and our currency into a spiral, downward spiral. huge problems and trouble. This all stems from the West's arrogancy, from the liberal leaders of the West, thinking that they are right and there's only one road that can be taken, and one way of thinking, and that is theirs. Instead of taking the responsible route and listening to the counterparts, listening to other people, listening to how other people might have done things, other ideas. No. These liberal politicians are doubling down on how they do things. All of a sudden, Ukraine is the most important thing for all these liberal politicians in the West. And all of a sudden you see everybody having a little Ukrainian flag on their Facebook page or Instagram account or whatever it may be. Until now, nobody knew. Nobody knew where Ukraine was. If you ask somebody, where is the Ukraine or what is the Ukraine, 75% of people probably wouldn't have known or would not even be able to show you on a map where it is, how it came about, and why it's important. Why is it important now? It is for these politicians. Like I said in my previous video, there are a number of reasons why they are now afraid that the Ukraine will fall. Mainly because of the illegal activities that have been going through the Ukraine for decades. Money laundering, all sorts of drug trafficking, and other things that we would rather not talk about. Many unmentionable things, illegal activity going through the Ukraine. And a lot of people, a lot of Western liberal politicians, from Hunter Biden and his father all the way through, Freeland, Trudeau, who knows who else, has a hand in it and has stake in it. Nobody cared about the Ukraine until now. And now all we hear from Western media, including the United States, Canada, that the Ukraine is our friend and Ukraine is extremely important to us. Of course, we don't want war. Only diplomacy can solve problems. War solves nothing. War is terrible and everybody suffers under war. However, red flags should be going off on why all of a sudden Western leaders, liberal leaders, are so interested and find it so important that the Ukraine be saved in that sense. Because it all goes back and is tied to them. They all have a hand in it. Each and every one of them. This is unfortunately by far not over. The West doesn't have a solution, and the West doesn't seem to want to come up with a solution, a diplomatic one. Ukraine has become the battlefield in the middle. And Zelensky, President Zelensky of the Ukraine, unfortunately, he's part of the issue as well for allowing all of these things to happen. Everything from the genocide of minorities in the Ukraine, nobody talks about, to, like I said, the illegal activities. They're all implicated. And because of the unwillingness to find a diplomatic solution, we're all going to suffer. Especially economically, as I said. With the sanctions on Russian oil, with the unwillingness to ramp up the production of Western oil and Western gas, and for what Putin has done, that is him amassing a huge stockpile of gold and wanting to then move away from the US currency as their basis of their economy and their currency, we're all in trouble if things don't turn around. This is my opinion, this is how I see things. So far, unfortunately, it doesn't look good for us. Let's hope that somebody has some common sense and wants to sit down, talk it through, and resolve this like adults in diplomatic fashion. Let's hope and pray for peace in this world. Let's hope and pray that a solution can be found that will benefit everybody and will not destroy us as we know it. Talk to you later.